हो गया? हाँ भाई देख लो।
Good afternoon, respected Professor Mehta, Honorary Professor University of Delhi, Professor D.K. Ahuja, Professor in Charge Law Center, Dr. Vicky Sharma, Director Samvad, Series 2020. Can we please have some silence? Thank you. Welcome to the second day of Samvad Lecture Series 2020. Professor Nanda shed light upon General Soleimani's killing and the realities of the action of Iran and the US in an extremely engaging and interactive session. Today, the theme of the lecture is Crisis at the WTO Dispute Settlement Board, and I would like to call upon Professor D.K. Ahuja to shed light on today's theme.
Today we have the second lecture in Professor Vicky Nanda lecture series, and the response which got from the students in the last lecture was wonderful, sir. They liked it very much because on General Soleimani's killing. What I did, Professor Vicky Nanda has rightly pointed out, he was rather complaining, last time. That's what I did. I have given him the themes ranging from public international law to WTO, that is international trade, to refusing of the humanitarian law, which is going to be the lecture day after tomorrow. And in between, we also had a lecture on the research skills and lecturing. So, sir, that was done adequately, but we wanted to get the best out of you because you are here just for 4 or 5 days only. So, friends, WTO though it is not the area of sir, but then I thought that it was something which was very important for all of us. And I remember, because when we talk of WTO dispute settlement body, if you look at its genesis, it goes back to 1986 when the European round started, the trade round started at Punta del Este. And earlier it used to be General Agreement on Tariff and Trade GATT. So what happened was that the contracting parties were not happy because there was no dispute settlement, effective and strong dispute settlement. And therefore they created this particular dispute settlement mechanism where if a country was having dispute against another, so it could be referred to the dispute settlement body, and there was a panel of arbitrators and then appellate board was also there. So within a time-bound mechanism, the cases were being heard and matters were resolved. And nobody thought that point of time that there will come a time when there will be a crisis at the WTO. I will not tell you what exactly the crisis is. Now it is for the sir to explain upon it, and sir, we are really very happy to host you. And this is the second one, and of course, get ready for the more toughest theme for the next year, sir. Thank you very much.
Good morning. So good to be with you again. And I feel the privilege to be with you. The only difficulty that I see is that some of you are standing like me. I feel that I should ask you to come and give a lecture. And I can sit down. But I've got only one chair I can offer you. And if I am standing all the time as I said, maybe you can stand also. Please know that I'm not challenging your intelligence, but I do need to ask a question. How many of you have taken international trade law? Raise your hands. All right? No, yeah. How many of you know about international trade? Obviously, you buy goods, you deal with services, and that is trade. But international trade law, obviously not many know. And what I would probably like to do is, we've got here professors who teach international trade law, but I'm going to give you a very, very quick refresher. And very elementary, nothing more than that. But before I do that, I simply wanted to ask you if any of you have been following or followed a little bit about President Trump's impeachment. How many of you have followed it? As you probably know, that under the US Constitution, if a president has committed what the Constitution calls crimes and misdemeanors. And it says more than that, high crimes and misdemeanors. And it says if a president commits that, then that president can be removed from office. And there is a process for that. And the process is that just like our Lok Sabha here, there is a House of Representatives, just like in the British lower house of Parliament. That house is the one that can impeach the president and say that the president be removed from the office because he has committed crimes and misdemeanors. And those crimes and misdemeanors, they are not defined. Now the House this time has said that president has committed those crimes by doing two things. One, that he has misused his authority. And second, that he has obstructed Congress. And the House has impeached him. But there is a process again that after the House has done that, then it goes to the Senate. Just like Rajya Sabha here, our House of Lords in England. And there is a trial there. And in that trial, the House, that means the Lok Sabha, serves as the prosecutors. They have 5 people who present a case to the Senate. Senate, just like our Rajya Sabha, acts as a jury. And the jury is the one that's going to decide. They present evidence, but then Senate has got its own rules. And Senate decided it did not want to hear any more evidence. It did not want to bring any people to give evidence. It did not get any documents. The House have done all that work. And based upon the House work, they said Trump should be impeached. In any event, tomorrow, the Senate is going to finally decide what to do, and the Senate is going to acquit him. Because in the Senate, they don't have the 2/3 majority to find him guilty of having misused his authority or to have obstructed Congress. There are Republicans, you probably know that, Democrats and Republicans, and then here you hear all the time BJP and AAP and Congress. And similarly, as you have the elections coming on the 8th in Delhi, elections in the United States are going to be this November. And it's the same kind of fury in the United States as it is today in Delhi. This morning I was reading papers and I was looking at the page after page of slogans and promises by each party. The same happens here. And today, this morning, 5 hours ago, Trump gave the State of the Union address. Each year, the President comes to both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, in the United States together. And then the President tells them what the State of the Union is. And I don't know how many of you have followed Trump, and how many of you know that day after day he is fond of doing tweets. And those tweets are at times funny, most of the time vulgar. And critics always say that he is so fond of lying, he is a liar. But I would simply say that he often departs from truth. Often departs from truth. And this morning, there was no exception. He talked for an hour. Some of you probably know, and you probably are not that interested, you don't need to be. But Trump was on the television for a long time on reality shows. And this morning, it was a reality show in Congress, because he's a past master in doing that. And there were again the same thing, promises and slogans. Promises that will not be kept, slogans that have got no substance, and that was for 1 hour. And if you saw that, it would be great entertainment. Any of you who saw it? No. Any of you who heard it on the radio or television? Raise your hands, those who saw it. Boy, you're the ones who should talk about it then. There are a couple of people here who saw that. But in any event, that is what has happened there. On international trade, let me give you a very, very elementary look at that. You know that after the Second World War, there was total destruction in Europe, and institutions had been totally eroded. At that time, 3 leaders in the world, and if I ask you who are the 3 victorious leaders, you probably could tell them. If I say Stalin, how many of you knew it? A lot of you. If I say Roosevelt, how many of you? And the third person, Churchill, all of you know it, wonderful. So these 3 people sat, and obviously they have had people who had worked for them, and they were looking at the future. League of Nations had died. They had to create new institutions. And so they thought of 3 areas. They said we need in the political arena somebody, some organization to succeed the League of Nations. You know, all the time you say, the king is dead, long live the king. And here the thought was, League of Nations is dead, but we do need a world organization. And so what was born? What followed the League of Nations? The United Nations. Then they decided that in the economic and in the fiscal field, we need an organization. And they created 2 of them. You can probably name both of them. World Bank and International Monetary Fund. And the third area was international trade. Because you probably recall that the Second World War, as it began, and I should probably be brief on it, I'll finish it and then we can move on. And they thought that, at that time, one of the reasons given was that every country decided to say that we need to see that our neighbor is the one that becomes a beggar, meaning thereby that they had put all kinds of impediments on international trade. Barriers were built, walls were built of tariff, all kinds of protectionist measures. And so the thought was that we must have an international trade organization that cuts down those barriers, that facilitates trade, that has got in the international arena a setting like that. And at that time they tried to have a World Trade Organization that the United States didn't want. That was the Havana Agreement. It didn't take place. And so the Senate of the United States said, we don't want an international organization. World Trade Organization was not there. And that is where, as Dr. Ahuja said, they had a makeshift arrangement. They wanted to have some kind of body, some kind of a forum where the countries could come together, they could negotiate, they could cut down tariffs. And so it was a GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, not an institution, but a small set of kind of people working in order to do that, to facilitate. And that continued until 1994. 1948, GATT was established, and years passed, decades passed, and they could not agree upon any organization to be created for that. And if I ask you the reason, many of you would be able to tell me, I won't ask you, but it was the Cold War. Those thick clouds and their shadows lingered for 4+ decades. Soviet Union, United States in a tussle, proxy wars, and Cold War did not permit anything to happen. United Nations practically not able to do anything on war and peace issues. No international trade organization could be created. And finally, after the Soviet Union collapsed, after the Cold War ended, you find that in 1994, you created an organization called the World Trade Organization. So that's the setting about the international trade. We do have an organization called World Trade Organization. It's in Geneva. It has got 164 member countries. Almost every country that does any trade is part of it. And that is the setting in which we find ourselves today. Now, WTO decided that it wanted to facilitate negotiation on international trade issues. And so what they called was, they started calling them rounds. That every few years, they would bring all the countries together, ministers of trade, and they would take 1 or 2 or 3 items that were just on the horizon as important priority items in international trade. For example, intellectual property. For example, trade in services. For example, subsidies. For example, quotas. For example, tariffs. That they should facilitate negotiations. They should cut down those barriers. They should provide some kind of settlement of disputes. Countries are going to have claims against each other. Claims are on dumping. Claims are on subsidies. Claims are on quotas. So World Trade Organization had one major function, that it should be rule-based. It had a major function, it be non-discriminatory. That countries, they should trade with other countries and all of them on equal basis. I'm just doing a very preliminary kind of look at it, but that is international trade rules. Rules created, standards set, facilitation of transparent, fair trade policies based upon non-discrimination. And that is the kind of setting where it all began. And the United States played a very, very important role in saying that we must have rule-based. Why? Because it gives you predictability. Why? Because it gives you stability. Why? Because it ensures fairness. Why? Because it's transparent. And so that was the kind of setting. So US played a very important role. And today, as Dr. Ahuja mentioned appropriately, US is the one that has paralyzed the most important part of that trade body, and that is dispute settlement mechanism. The thought was that it was trade disputes, trade wars, backed up by neighbor policy, that in part was responsible for friction leading to all that happened in the Second World War, a war. That trade war might lead to war. And so the thought simply was that we need to stop those mini wars. We need to bring about stability in the world. Let there be rules. Let there be settlement of disputes by a body. And very quickly, I simply again want to give you a refresher that what trade dispute resolution was in the WTO, that you as a country have a claim against another because you have negotiated a deal and you say that another country is not following faithfully that negotiated deal. And therefore you bring a dispute. You don't go to war to do that. You find a dispute settlement body. So they decided that there would be a settlement structure. Very briefly, what happens is that you make a claim, and that WTO then can have an ad hoc kind of tribunal. They would call it, this is a panel of people selected by WTO who understand trade, and they would sit and they would talk with you. Initially what would happen is the WTO would say to both parties, please sit down, negotiate, find a peaceful settlement. You can probably talk with each other. Dialogue can lead to a compromise. If it doesn't happen, then it said we are going to have these trade experts. They are going to look at both sides and they are going to decide who is right, who is wrong. It's not a tribunal, but it acts like a tribunal. They are not rules of procedure that are set. They are not rules of evidence that are rigid, but that panel is going to make a decision. And panel's decision can be appealed. And so there was an appeal body, a ballot body, on which a 7-member, expert 7 members were going to be set. And they could have a 4-year term, they could get another term, and then anyone, as you probably know, everybody has got its own procedures. That's how it went. Now, on those 7 members, there was one condition, that there must be at least 3 that can hear an appeal. And their terms expire after 8 years. And everything in the WTO was done by unanimity, consensus. United States is the one that had been all the time seeking rule-based an organization, and the United States is the one that said WTO has gone too far. And I'll give you 6 reasons that they said that, and their complaint, and then I'll tell you what happened. 2016, President Obama blocked one of the judges, Korean judge. That was the first time that had happened. Usually, people would be selected, every country would say, yay, that's fine. But the Obama administration did that. And this time, Trump administration, you probably know, it has been in trade war with China. With India, it's on steel. With other countries on aluminum. What do we call it? Aluminium here or aluminum? Okay. So I'll call aluminum. But that is what has happened. The Trump administration had all those trade wars with Europe, with China, with India. And that is the kind of setting. But it also said, because of its own complaints against the WTO, that it's not going to permit the appointment of new people on the appellate court. Came December 10, 2019. Less than 2 months ago, terms had expired, there was only one person left. So, no appellate body can be formed, no trade bar can be brought before appellate body. That is the crisis. And Ahmedji asked me to talk about WTO. And he mentioned to you here that he not only gave me public international law, but private international law, and then even beyond that on biowarfare and all that. And what he meant to tell you is that there are smart international lawyers who do only one thing, public or private. And then there are dummies like me who do both areas. So he said, you know, now that you have done some good, you must be punished for it. So I am going to do both. In any event, so today, what is the issue? And I want to tell you 6 areas that the United States says that there is something wrong with WTO. Primarily it says with WTO that it does not find a proper solution to see that China has been doing abuses. China's organization, the state is organized in a way that because a communist state, all the industry is centralized, and it's state-owned kind of things, and there are all kind of abuses. China gives subsidies, China has not followed the rules, and that WTO does nothing. But on the appellate body, it has got 6 reasons that it gives. And I want to mention to you all 6 of them appropriate. It says that there is a rule that in 90 days, appellate body should make a decision. It's not doing it. It said what has happened is that appellate body not only doesn't complete in 90 days, but those people who are sitting on the court on the appellate body, their 8-year term, when the term ends, they still continue on the body, and they say that an appeal that began while we were on the board, we are going to continue in order to finish it. And the United States says that's not good. Third, the United States says that the appellate body has exceeded its mandate. That in interpreting the rules, it's creating rules. That it has not followed its own mandate. Fourth, it says that it gives advisory opinions, and that means that its interpretation is usually wrong. It also objects to the appellate body by saying that it uses precedent. All of you know, as you know in the common law countries, and especially when you think about the prior judgments, if the Supreme Court has given a judgment, it always takes priority and precedent. It's a precedent setting. And it says that there is no provision that it should be precedent, because as you probably know that in civil law countries, you don't have any precedents. And here they say that ought not to be precedent. And then they say that it has overstepped its bounds because it has taken away rights, it has added to the rights, and it's just gone way beyond, and it has been a rogue body in that sense. These are the 6 possible reasons given. I think I'm going to shorten it and complete it in about 5 minutes so that you can make any comments or ask any questions. Now, what do you do about it? There are many possibilities at the present time. What happened is that the world body knew that, and the United States, being a very powerful state, it can act as a bully, and it is acting as a bully. And so they have thought in the WTO, they have thought in countries that are interested in trade to find a way out. And so they asked the New Zealand permanent representative to do something about it. And they asked him to be responsible, Ambassador Walker, and last November, he looked at all these things and he said, you know, surely the United States is acting as a bully, but the United States does have valid points. And the criticism has some validity. And he said, let's see. And one after another, he looked at all those complaints and he said, surely we should say that in 90 days they must finish. We should also say that in 8 years they must go away. We should also say that the appellate body should not make laws, should not go beyond its mandate, that the appellate body must not by interpreting be creating new laws, it must not overstep this thing. So he has done all that. And the United States is non-committal. It is not saying that they should not respond to its criticism. The United States is saying, even now, let us look back and see why it all happened. That you can take care of it, but we don't want it to happen again. So we want, as a good doctor, good diagnosis. And once you have a diagnosis, then you can probably find the cure. So I think at the present time, there is still impasse. Now, very briefly to mention to you, I mentioned that the WTO facilitates trade negotiations, and the latest trade negotiation had created what is called Doha Round. Do you know where Doha is? In Qatar. And the Doha Round was 2001, and it has dragged on. The purpose of Doha Round was special. It was development. It was to give some kind of priority to developing countries. And then you remember, 10 years ago, 2008, there was economic downturn. And so, after that, not really much happened. And 2013 in Bali, 2015 in Nairobi, some effort was made. Some issues have been settled, I won't take you through them. But then 2017 came, and there were again negotiations, and and the fishery agreement on fisheries, and India blocked it. And so nothing happened in 2017, 18. Now in 2020, there is going to be 12 ministerial rounds, and they are trying at that time to give answer to the United States about all these complaints. They are trying to reform the WTO. Yesterday, as a matter of fact, in Washington, D.C., the Director General of the WTO, and his name, does anybody know his name? It's Roberto Azevedo. And he said, you know, we do need to adapt. He said WTO is the only body that can create stability, that can create predictability, and that can at least give assurance to countries, to investors, to people that international trade will blossom. I've got all these statistics here, I won't take it to you. But remember, this is an issue of globalization. Trade is an issue that in the present time, there are many people who have felt, critics, economists, those who are for it, proponents, and they all have agreed that because of the liberalization of international trade, countries have prospered. Trade has expanded. In most countries, it has led to prosperity. It has been partly responsible for getting those people who are very, very poor to at least rise up a little bit economically. And so he says that we need to adapt. I was looking at several issues. For example, on steel issue, the United States is going to appeal a verdict that was given in favor of India. There have been other cases that have just been brought before the body. So although the appellate body is not working, WTO is working. And we'll see how it takes place. So let me briefly sum it up for you. Only on the assignment that was given to me that the appellate body today is paralyzed. United States is responsible for it. United States says our complaints need to be taken care of. In 2020, this June, the hope is that once they meet, it's going to be in Kazakhstan. Meeting is going to be 8th to 11th June. Effort is to find a compromise so that the appellate body can again function, so that dispute can be settled peacefully, because at the present time, Trump does not believe in multilateralism, does not believe in WTO, wants to do it only on its own, bilateral and regional, and with a heavy hand tries to have negotiations with countries where it weighs upon them with its own power and prestige. And this morning, he was nothing else but talking about how the United States is the world's best country, and he has done what no other administration had ever done, and he has done in order to see that America be great again, and that the Obama administration had destroyed the United States, and he is saving it, and saving it by tweets. But in any event, that, my friends, is the setting in which we find ourselves, and I can certainly be happy to take 5 or 10 minutes of questions and comments. But WTO is alive. WTO must live, WTO must be strengthened, WTO must be reformed. International trade is in India's interest, international trade is in the world's interest. Thank you. Happy to take a few questions and comments. Yes, sir. आप खड़े हो गए, so I'm going to listen to you. But don't ask a difficult question, okay?
It won't be difficult for you at all. Professor Nanda, thank you very much for taking the time out and being a part of this lecture. Very informative.
You know what I do?
Yes,
I don't really teach law. I teach skiing. So come to Colorado.
I must.
It's beautiful skiing area.
I'd love to learn. So I'm not sure I'm in complete agreement with the fact that international trade has helped economies uniformly, particularly in the global south. If we were to look at the RCEP, one of the primary reasons that India didn't sign it was three clauses: the value-added obligations, the ratchet clause, the FFN forward clause, and the fact that we have a massive trade deficit with most of our trading partners. When you say that bilateral trade isn't the way to go for the global north, particularly the United States of America, I might be in agreement with you, but from the perspective of India, I actually think bilateral trade is a fantastic thing, and we must go ahead and trade bilaterally with our partners instead of getting into global FTAs where we end up living the wrong end of the deal. I would love to hear what you have to say about the RCEP.
Very good, yeah. You know, I presented a pretty rosy picture. And the point simply is that globalization has its drawbacks too. And in international trade, there are losers and winners. And in international trade at times, environment, labor, national sovereignty, they have not really been taken account of. And in the trade experts, they do not care about the environment. They don't know anything else but trade. And so I think that the point being made is a good point. Keep that at the back of your mind. But I think what we need to do is look at pros and cons, look at cost and benefit, and not simply in economic terms. But at the same time, we need to be objective. And I think overall, my own thinking is that you can use international trade with some reforms in a way that it would be not a zero-sum game, but a win-win situation. So, sir, I do feel that it has got some positive aspects. It needs to be reformed, but it can serve a useful function. That all right?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'll take your question also.
All right. Thank you. He's very gracious. He says, you know, this guy has come from thousands of miles. Let me be kind to him. All right.
Sir, like after the formation of CAT in 1948, so one of the major flaws that was highlighted in its working was that it lacked a binding dispute settlement mechanism, right? Because of which we saw the aggressive American unilateralism of the 80s or the early 90s. And this formation of WTO in 94, it like provided the much needed succor to global multilateral trade. So now this attempted disempowerment of affiliate body by the Trump administration, which is like a very vital part, ground jewel as we call it, is it that we are heading towards the days of tit for tat protectionism for the low of strongest?
Very good, very good. Just briefly, in 1948, when the United States Senate said no, it was primarily at that time because the United States has always been averse to a third-party decision-making. The US being a powerful country, it doesn't want decision-making to be given to anybody else. It wants itself to be the judge and jury. So I think the United States Senate was being very parochial in saying that it's not going to permit the Senate ratification if the President brought it back. Because as you know, in the US as here, in every country there is a process. In the US the process is that negotiation on international issues will be done by the executive. And then the legislature is the one that is going to give its authorization to the President to ratify it. And Senate ratifies it by 2/3 majority. So that is the kind of setting, and Senate had said, we're not going to ratify it. And today, after the WTO appellate body has been paralyzed, the effort is in order to revive it, and I hope that it can serve interests of India as well. Thank you. Yes, sir. There are 2-3.5 hands. You all answer everybody. Yes, sir.
So, good afternoon and thank you for an enlightening lecture. So, I have one agreement with the United States that China has a currency manipulator. As far as 2016 was concerned, we devalued currency and it used hidden subsidies to provide trade advantages to its people, and it has gained advantage. But whereas when WTO is concerned in the matter of trade in services, trade in goods is okay. It has facilitated liberalization, but trade in services and liberalization of manpower or travel between the country, it has not really agreed with the countries which are very much having a large population like India. India wants liberal rules related to travel manpower. So how do you think that WTO can solve the issue about liberalization in services compared to how it has done in goods?
Very good. I think I simply mentioned to you, I didn't go into any details, but when the United States says that China has abused its membership and China has abused the rules of WTO, it has got a valid business. And the currency devaluation and subsidies, they are the main part, but on intellectual property rights also, as you know, it cuts both ways. In the back, when one of our friends, colleagues, made that point, he had a valid point. Because intellectual property issues, and that is those perspectives, those things related to intellectual property and issues related to trade, it has got problems for developing countries because major corporations have used it in order not to permit even medicine that is a lower cost in many countries. South Africa suffered at that time because when AIDS had devastated the country and the price was enormous, exorbitant for the cure and licensing, finally compulsory licensing came along. But in any event, there are those issues, and China's abuses, they are endemic, and something needs to be done, and probably that is where I think US and other countries, including India, have got to value.
Sir, and liberalization in services.
I'm sorry?
Travel, liberalization in services.
I'm sorry.
So liberalization in services.
Services.
Oh, services, yeah.
Yeah, services, where the most populated countries like India want other countries to limit the restrictions in travel given to its manpower, like skilled manpower.
India has got a valid point.
And WTO until this time has been very favorable in related to trade in goods. When it comes to goods, it wants globalization. What is globalization? When it is something is produced in America, for example, for price advantages, when it sends to India, it will have a stabilization effect economically. Demand, supply, and the price will be stable. Similarly, when you have someone who is working for more wages in US and there are lots of skilled manpower in India, when he goes there, the wage rate will get stabilized. So demand, supply, and the wage rate will stabilize. That is how economics will work. But protectionism or giving unfavorable advantages to its citizens will be every country's national interest. So that is when national interest and international interest or globalization will come into clash, like multilateralism and national interest.
Very good. You know, I'm never going to trust you again. All of you. Because I asked how many of you know international trade? No hand. I said, how many of you can tell me something about it? No hand. And now they are telling me how astute they are. They are telling me how much they know. But damn it, I knew that you knew. and you are telling a lie, so it's not simply Trump. You know, you come from an elite school. You are intelligent yourselves. I wish that every one of you, in the future, in your own careers, in your own work, play an important role in the international arena. And I know that you will. And I can tell you, when I was at Yale Law School, small law school, very small, you are thousands. That school had only 600-700 people. Each one of them had felt not self-righteous, not haughty and arrogant, but had felt very strongly a responsibility on his or her part to play an enormously important part, not simply in the judicial, in the legal arena, but arena of their country and arena in the world, an important part. And I want each one of you, and that is my charge to you, to play an equally important role in the international arena. I want to see some of you become Secretary General of the United Nations. And India to be on the Security Council. And India to play an important role. And goodbye.
Thank you everyone. Thank you sir for such an engaging lecture. We'll see you tomorrow.
Time for lunch.
कार्ड दिला अपना कार्ड है